Hello and welcome. It's World Cup news breakdown brought to you by Sri Lanka's #1 sports hub www.thepapare.com. Important tournament and important aspects to be discussed today. And as usual, joining me is Roshan Abesinghe, the international commentator and the face of international cricket in Sri Lanka, one would say, and of course Jehan Mubarak, as usual very active and a former World Cup representative for the country. Gentlemen, welcome. A fantastic win against England the other day, and all sorts of records going by the way, but that's not the story. It's just what Sri Lanka gained as far as confidence concerned.
Yeah, brilliant win, I thought. The fact that Sri Lankan batting is clicking, and to chase down 300 for 1 wicket with 2.5 overs to spare. And I like the fact that Lahiru Thirimanne got 100 against his boogeyman James Anderson, who dismissed him quite a few times in his career, and where he answered him in style. Of course, he had a few lucky escapes. At 98 he was missed by Moeen Ali of Anderson. Had that been taken, maybe Thiri would have regretted, but the way he batted and the way Sangakkara batted and the way the Sri Lankan batting rose to the occasion after England got more than 300, which was a challenging score, I thought fantastic. We discussed this. I think we made the point that Sri Lanka will beat England. I felt that the England confidence was low, and Sri Lanka really pounced on it. And in fact, I read the comments by some well-known English former cricketers, and one of them, Jeff Boycott, who says that this defeat was worse than what New Zealand inflicted on England. So it speaks of the value, the way Sri Lanka played, and what it meant to England to be defeated like that.
Jan, we discussed about Gary Valance and Ravi Bopara. No change in the situation as far as that match concerned.
Yes, I'm somewhat surprised, because I thought with Alistair Cook going out and Morgan taking over the captaincy, that the approach to the game from the Englishmen would change and their selection would reflect that, but it hasn't. And what they've gone back to having balance at the top and basically playing a waiting game. Yes, they got 300 runs on the board, but it was a very stop-start innings. There was no real flow to it, and it took a good, magnificent 130 from Joe Root to hold the innings together. Apart from that, nobody really contributed. So Joe Root himself, who was, I believe, dropped by Mahela early on. Yes. So if that catch had been taken, England would have really struggled. But I think now there are a lot of calls for changes to the selection, and even within the team, James Taylor batting at #7 makes no sense whatsoever. Also, the bowling lacked inspiration, and best bowler was Moeen Ali, because he took pace off the ball.
But it was also one-dimensional.
It was one-dimensional. I mean, the English attack, we talk about Anderson and Chris Woakes, who can swing the ball, Steve Finn and Stuart Broad, who seam, but it was they did that for about 2 overs, and then they were just banging it in short and short boundary on one side. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. They just had a plan A of bowling short to us, and that was it.
Okay, now the domestic scene will be full of schools cricket, big matches, and the domestic inter-club tournament. But when it comes to next Sunday, the whole country will focus on Australia, and Sri Lanka's chances 3 good wins back to back, and getting there. You think that the build-up is good, that there is areas that needs to be discussed have been sort of performing, like especially the likes of Lasith Malinga bowling and picking up wickets?
Well, I think the biggest concern will be Rangana Herath going into that game. I was, concerned, because we discussed this again. What happens if Herath gets injured? That was the question we asked. And I see this problem as twofold. One is you take Herath out of the equation. We don't have a banker, so to speak, who can basically stop the runs. Number two, you bring in, you need to play a spinner at Sydney, being Sydney and where the ball is turning. You bring in Sachitra Senanayaka. So you will have Dilshan and Senanayaka who are two off spinners. And the third thing, Jehan, I feel is Senanayaka hasn't played a game in the World Cup. When did he last play? He last played in the one-day series against New Zealand. And where is his confidence level? He didn't do as well as we expected. The question is he as effective as what he was when he was bowling with his olden action? Now he's changed, he's got more sideways, true. He's the, what we call the purist delight in terms of the action. But in terms of effectiveness, so I feel this factor is going to tell a lot on us, because don't forget, James Faulkner will be available. He's playing against Afghanistan. There is Glenn Maxwell. There is David Warner. I don't know whether they'll go with Marsh. I don't know what the combination will be. But we do know that Australia is a power hitting team and they'll be smarting after that defeat against New Zealand.
Jehan, Sydney traditionally, spinner's wicket they say, but may not be that spin friendly because it's being overlooked by the ICC. You think that Australia will take this step of going with absolute pace, play the three Mitchells?
They might. They will definitely look to bring James Faulkner back in. Especially, I mean, if he plays against Afghanistan, even if he doesn't play against Afghanistan, he will be fit for Sunday's game against Sri Lanka. I feel Australia will also look at Xavier Doherty because going forward in the World Cup, they will need a spin option because their spinners they don't have a genuine spinner. Yes, they can go with their three Mitchells, the three left arm quicks if they want, but I don't think Australia going forward will have that combination throughout the knockout stages. I think they will look to bring in Xavier Doherty. Who they leave out to do that will be interesting, whether they will leave out Mitchell Marsh. There is a school of thought to say that they might leave out Shane Watson at the top and get the guys moving one up. That's a possible combination. But again, as Roshan quite correctly said, whatever combination they play, they are going to come hard at us and they will be a power hitting unit. So we need to prepare to combat that as well. Whether we stick with the three bowlers and the 7 batsmen, I don't know if that's... We are lucky that Rangana's injury happened towards the end of that innings. If it happened somewhere in the middle, that's one of our specialist bowlers taken out and we have nobody to rely on. If Suranga Lakmal had bowled those two beamers early on in his spell and was taken off, we have no option because we are playing with only 3 specialist bowlers. So that is a risk that we run, especially even when we play against a team like Australia who are going to come hard at us.
Take a break. You know, you're watching World Cup News Breakdown and ThePapare is unsurpassed in sports content.
Fire up your home or office with ultimate speeds. Keep up with the next generation on Dialog 4G. Connect to the fastest network with burst speeds of 40 Mbps. Go 4G with monthly plans starting at just 1,400 rupees. Dialog, the future today.
Roshan, when you look at the option that we've got now with Sikuge Prasanna rushed over there to Sydney, is there really a reason why they will be looking at leaving out Rangana Herath? Maybe he wouldn't play against Australia, maybe not Scotland, but Sri Lanka will qualify to play in the quarterfinals. You think that this is a serious thing, that the injury is a lot worse than what we think?
No, it's not a fracture. So it's only 3 or 4
it's
stitches.
Only healing time.
Yeah, it's 3 or 4 stitches, and what we've heard is it could take up to 7 to 10 days. So ideally, we can't afford to risk Rangana against Australia or Scotland, because in any event, Sri Lanka is reasonably safe. They'll get to the quarterfinals. It's a question of whom they want to play. Now, if they end up third, it's more than likely they'll play South Africa. Now that if they can, they'll try and avoid it. it's better to play West Indies or Pakistan for that matter.
Ireland, for that matter, if they come through.
Yeah, if they come through. But Sikuge Prasanna's case, it's purely precautionary, because you got to understand that Australia is a fair bit of a distance away from Sri Lanka, and you will need to give at least 24 to 48 hours to have a replacement flying in. So they're just having him there as a precaution. If Rangana Herath does not recover in time for the quarter-final game, maybe Siku will be looked at as an option, but which would mean, sorry Haritha, which would mean that Rangana Herath will be ruled out of the World Cup, because you can't have Sikuge playing whilst Rangana is in the squad. You need to have somebody moving out. The ICC doctors will have to look at it. They'll have to make the recommendation to the technical committee, and based on that only Siku's inclusion or keeping him there.
Tell me, will Sikuge Prasanna stay with the team officially at the official hotel and train with the team?
Yeah,
yes.
yes,
All that is possible.
Yes.
So that's an extra player there.
Sri Lanka's expense.
And
It's
Sri
not at the
Lanka's
World Cup expense.
Okay, that's fine. Now, getting back into this power play story, we are looking at 100 overs of power play, batting, bowling, fielding. Australia has an advantage. Sri Lanka has a few problems on the field. Thisara Pereira, still the problem remains.
He's not bowling well. But he's not bowling well, which forced Angelo to bowl his quota of 10 overs, which is a great thing. I've always said this, that Angelo underbowls himself.
We maintain why he won't be opening bowling also at one stage.
So Angelo bowling his 10 is great. Dilshan bowling his 8 is also great. So Angelo was forced into a situation where he had to bowl himself and Dilshan. But yes, he has a problem with Thisara, and also a problem of who is going to bowl at the death. He tried Thisara out, it didn't work. Tried Suranga, it's not working. Lasith is not bowling at his best. Dilshan bowled the 50th over against England out of a lack of option, really. So that is a serious area, especially against a team like Australia, who are going to come really hard at us, and going forward against the likes of India, South Africa. We need to get our death bowling sorted very, very soon.
Just to the layman, I mean, Sri Lanka have done extremely well in the top draw of the all-rounders. There's Dilshan and Matthews. At the batting department, there is Thiriman, and above him at the top itself, Sangakkara. All good, but Sri Lanka have not had their middle order exposed in the last 2 games. And if you are looking at a very competitive outfit like Australia, who will want to sort of qualify in style into that second slot, which Sri Lanka is also now capable of getting in, how would you think the batting would revolve with hardly anything from Karunaratne and Chandimal there? There is a vacuum.
No, those are some of the minus factors when you have batsmen performing. You know, in any side, you have the first 4 or 5 scoring runs, so you're bound to have your middle order and the lower middle order missing out. So that is the minus factor. So you got to be ready for that. So that's the key. So let's hope that Karunaratne and Chandimal, if they play, that they'll be ready for that situation. Because you can't be expecting Sangakkara to get 100 every time he goes out. You can't expect the Sri Lankan openers to come up with 100 runs partnership every time. I mean, you got to allow them. You got to have that leverage where batsmen will fail. So that's one of the minus factors of having a performing batting lineup.
Okay, you've been there. You know what it is. If you're not hitting as well as you want to, in the case of Dinesh Chandimal, I mean, there may be a question that the top order is performing and you have scored in the time that you've got your stay out in the middle. It's not the case that we are talking about with Chandimal. You think that that is going to weigh on him?
A little bit, but also it's a World Cup. So it's an opportunity which some of these players may not get again. And I don't think they'll sit back and worry about, how many runs should I get. Worry about your place in the team should be secondary. And we have Sangha and Thiri and Dilshan have set this very high standard of getting 300 comfortably. And even if we lose early wickets, and if if we have to call on Dimuth and Chandi, they should be batting with the mindset that it doesn't matter what happens, we need to get to that 300, because we're not going to win if we don't get there. If we bat second, chances are we'll have to chase 300. If we bat first, we definitely have to try and put up 300. So that the difference to the Sri Lankan batting has been that game against Bangladesh in Melbourne, where we batted with so much freedom, and then we did the same thing against England. And whoever bats, whether it's Angelo, Mahela, Chandi, even Dimuth, if they bat with that freedom and express themselves, I'm sure they will be successful, because this is a World Cup and it's an opportunity which none of the players may get ever again. I mean, yes, they are young enough to play another World Cup or maybe 2 or 3 more, but you can't take things for granted in this sport.
Okay, the stats say that at Sydney, in 147 matches, the side winning the toss and batting first 81 times they won, and 59 times the side batting second won. So this is purely the statistician's record, but it can change because the game has changed, and we'll discuss how the game has changed now. But this message is about the two legends, Sangha and Mahela, and the ThePapare.com's tribute page is there. You can send in your tributes to the two legends, and they are expected to do well. Share the passion, as we do always with local sport. Getting back into this whole story of Sri Lanka preparing mentally, what's there for Sri Lanka to prepare mentally against Australia, especially?
Well, I think they need to go out with a positive mindset. You know, always I believe teams before they go out, they have been reminded of the good times rather than the negatives. You know, they've always, you know, that's what you.
And Sydney is a ground where we have good memories.
Yeah, we won, and Sydney is one ground that we might want to play as against playing at the Gabba or shall we say at Perth, maybe Melbourne because of the crowd, and Sydney because of the slowishness of the pitch and the pitch taking spin. And so it's been a friendly ground for Sri Lanka.
Yeah, friendly in the sense Sri Lanka have won 7. They've lost 10, but Sri Lanka have won 7.
That's the key. You see, we have won. You see, so it's a case of believing in the team, believing in what you can do, and telling yourself that on your day you can be as good as anybody or better than anybody, rather than just being worried. It is good to understand the opponents, but you should never be overawed by them.
When you play Australia, Sri Lanka have done well, and it's a fact that's not acknowledged openly. But Australia know that Sri Lanka could be real beaters.
For Australia, for some odd reason, bring the best out of the Sri Lankan team wherever they play. They are the team that we like to hate. If it were India, come a very close second or maybe first now. But since that tour down under where Murali was called and we had so many issues there, we get very worked up, very intense when we play against Australia, and even the crowd get very involved in it, and the players, for us, we prefer to remain as underdogs, and Australia always expected to beat us quite comfortably when they play at home. But in this situation, it's surprisingly Australia, for them it's a must-win game. They have lost a game to rain against Bangladesh. If they lose to us and Bangladesh somehow managed a win somewhere down the line, it could be tricky for them, and they could end up 4th, end up playing India or South Africa in a quarter-final, which nobody really wants to do. So I think the pressure is actually on Australia. Sri Lanka will go in knowing that whatever happens, we are going to qualify for the quarter-finals. We are playing without Rangana Herath, so nobody is going to really say too much if we do take a bit of a thrashing. Australia, on the other hand, no, they have to win. And if we can enforce that on the field and say, look, this is your home, this is your ground, show us what you can do, that might work in our favour.
Michael Clarke captaining Australia on his home ground, you think that's a decisive factor, that he brings in that little bit extra as an Australian captain?
Well, I'm sure, yeah. But I don't know whether he's really fit to play in that
that's
side.
That's exactly what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, because he's been injured, he's carrying a hamstring, and that hamstring is not an ordinary hamstring. He seemed to really struggle with it.
He's got a back issue as well.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of things, which is why he's not bowling as well. If Michael Clarke is bowling, the balance of the team looks so much better.
Yeah, he could bowl a few cheap overs.
Yes. So without him not bowling, the balance, because Australia are playing a 3-bowler combination as well. As much as we talk about Sri Lanka playing 3 bowlers, Australia playing just 3 bowlers. But their 3 bowlers, I think, are better than our 3 bowlers. But having said that, it's still a very vulnerable attack if you know whom to target.
Getting into a situation that is a crunch match for Australia, when you go into that personal aspect for Michael Clarke, he's lost to New Zealand in that important game. I mean, you say the Chappell Hadley Trophy, that's something big. You play on your home ground, you're not fully fit, you may be under a little bit of pressure to perform in front of your home crowd, the real home crowd. You think as an individual that would weigh on his decision making out in the middle?
It will, but that's part of the job as a captain of especially the Australian team. Also remember that he's keeping George Bailey out of the team. George Bailey who scored runs in the game before. So that's going to be weighing on his mind as well. That is, are we losing because I'm playing and I'm not scoring runs? That's got to weigh on his mind. But as a captain, as a cricketer, you have to put that behind you, and you're better than that. You have to tell yourself, look, I'm better than George Bailey. That's why I'm captain of the Australian World Cup team. And he certainly is. Again, it's a matter of confidence, but I still do have a question mark over his fitness. So that is the one thing that could be holding him back.
What about form? I think he hasn't played enough cricket.
He hasn't played enough cricket, but I think he's a good enough cricketer to sort of play himself, bat himself into form. But I think lack of form is also due to his injury. He's struggling to reach out to balls which...
when you come to the toss, say the side winning the toss, electing to bat, what would be the total? If it's the case of Sri Lanka, what would they be looking at?
300 plus, yeah. 300 plus, Haritha, because don't forget, Australia can get 100 in the last 10 overs. I think 300 won't be enough against Australia.
Okay, he said 300 plus.
At least 350, at least 350.
Yeah.
No, considering the power
300 is the minimum. I would, we should, 320 would be a winning score.
You think? Okay. Why I say that, Jehan,
he said 300 plus and he's going up to 350.
Why I say that I will support my claim, because you see, you got to go on available evidence. Available evidence is Glenn Maxwell. He can be a very, very difficult customer simply because the way he bats. You see, he is a mini De Villiers because he can walk around the crease. He could play the most unbelievable shot. So he's that kind of cricketer, and he's also a power hitter. And the biggest worry as far as Sri Lanka is concerned is Faulkner. And I think Faulkner is a player who can win this World Cup for Australia.
Yeah.
In form.
Batting and bowling.
Yeah. Batting and
mostly
bowling.
As a batsman.
He's their key player.
He's going to be the man.
So so I feel that, look, yes, 350 would be great. I don't think we have the personnel capable of getting us to 350.
That's the point.
Our top 4, if we are to get to 350, our top 4 or top 5 has to get us there. In which case, I don't think we need to have 6 and 7 specialist batsmen. Let's set our sights lower. Let's target 300 or 320 and play the extra bowler. Play Dushmantha Chameera and Sachitra Senanayaka. Let's set our sights lower at 300, 320 and let's stop them. Dushmantha has got pace. Glenn Maxwell, you can push him with a bit of extra pace and extra bounce.
I was trying to tell this
and actually,
to Roshan, and he said, you want to do that? I said, I want to do that. Spinners we can go with the 140 we have.
No, but I play the extra ball, play Sachitra and Dushmantha and leave out the batsman.
Yeah, that's an option you got to look at if they take his route. But I honestly feel that Sri Lanka should bat second. Because yeah, I think what difference does it make? Because in Australia, I don't think it will be a big difference unless the pitch slows down. So if the pitch is being supervised by the ICC and if it is a 300 plus pitch, and if we have been chasing 300 plus scores, I don't think pitchers will slow down and change so much. I feel we should bat second for one reason, Jehan, because we have something to aim at. Because when we are batting first with a I wouldn't want to call it a weak bowling attack, but with an average bowling attack, we'll not know how much is good enough.
I'll support you on that because we've got 3 centurions batting second. And I don't think any other team has a centurion batting second. I can't recall something really big. You've been a teammate of Kumar Sangakkara. 300s in a row. Are we asking too much of him?
No, he's done that before. He's done that in Test. He's got 350s in a row. Just missed out on a fourth thanks to Rudy Kurtzen, who gave him out, caught him when it hit his shoulder. But he's done that before. And once Sangha gets into a groove, he just goes on and on and on. He's someone who, once he gets his timing and his method to his game sorted, he doesn't step off it. He just goes on through, and he's peaked at the right time, and he brought what was needed to the Sri Lankan team: confidence and freedom. And I don't think he's going to change. I think he'll just go on throughout this World Cup.
Last throw. What do you want to say about the match?
About the sitting game, as I said, I like to see Sri Lanka chasing rather than batting first, because we'll always have a target to aim at, and we feel comfortable chasing. And you know, it will be a far better option to Sri Lanka, because Lasith Malinga, as Jehan said, is not bowling well. We don't have death bowlers, and that's where Faulkner becomes very effective. I mean, even if we keep them under, say, 200 in the first 40 overs, they can still get 100 plus in the last 10 overs if they're chasing, say, 305 or 310 or anything close to that.
I'm not too averse to the idea of batting second, but I would really like to see the extra ball. I think against Australia, the only way to contain them is to take wickets. And I don't think whoever we play from that 15 that we are going to be able to put up 350. So play the extra bowler and we should be able to win that.
You've been watching World Cup News Breakdown, sharing the passion. Thank you very much for being there. We thank both of you. Hopefully, we wish Sri Lanka for a big win, and we'll be there to discuss that in our next program.
Fire up your home or office with ultimate speeds. Keep up with the next generation on Dialog 4G. Connect to the fastest network with burst speeds of 40 Mbps. Go 4G with monthly plans starting at just 1,400 rupees. Dialog, the future today.